tene ta tanda tangbo ngadu dele shiju ta tene tanda doji jodum sonde dembe kap la chitang kumu number tapa ta tene zavel lama to jipe lama tam chela tepa tam muguji solwa tap naruji.
I'd like to wish everyone good morning, and then we will chant the short Vajradhara lineage prayer. And while we chant it, please chant it with a pure motivation and great faith and devotion in the root and lineage lamas.
Adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun, and the moon. Imagining this as the Buddha realm, I offer it so that all beings may enjoy that pure realm. In accordance with the capabilities and the diverse aspirations of sentient beings, I ask you to turn the wheel of Dharma, of the greater, lesser, or conventional vehicles.
Tene tatanda jirdu penditai jegom tang kuslai jogom namba ni yebna ne tanda tene penditai jegom ge ondu seba re la Teni pentratai Chogyam chebe kapso Jirdu tangaranso ge teni le gewaso go yor. Deji tope ke chedula. Nekap ge deji inayanda. Tartu ge deji inayanda. Nekap ge deji ta sendala seku norlongje la so ge deji pensong so batawata. Tartu ge deji teni korwe dunghar tang chalne tenji dewa sanji ji kompong topa inayanda te ta te chedula gewa so go batang. Tene te kendo le me gewa pangu bare la. Tege cherdo tene gewa kandi ke goni sogo krese na cherdo lungwa ye song ke goni sogo pa cherela. Ti nani zo cheshu te tene sanji goni gewe zawa sopa te rela. Sanji goni gewe zawa sopa te ta kanga ke zawa ndabo. Lungwa ni de ta kasenga kasuru sumari lungwa ni de yobo tabo tong santi gyalbo tabo yinpe chen. Tene san korang ke on jurgi yorela. Tene san korang ke on jurwa yinpe cherna. Tene santi yabo je zoju tang tut na. Tene lungwa ni de rangin ke ti chola drogi yaba yinpe cherna. Ngarang tsu ke zo. Tene santi jurgi ke tabla.
These instructions have the two parts, the analytic meditation of the Pandita and the resting meditation of the Kusulu. And of these two different parts, we are now talking about the analytic meditation of the Pandita. And in terms of the analytic meditation of a Pandita, when we are doing this analytic meditation of the Pandita, we need to accomplish virtue. We need to practice virtue. We need to bring ourselves happy. That is why we need to accomplish virtue. We need to bring ourselves temporary happiness. We need to bring ourselves ultimate happiness. When we talk about temporary happiness, this means the enjoyments of this life, our food, our clothing, our possessions, and so forth. And when we talk about ultimate happiness, we are talking about the ultimate freedom from the suffering of samsara, the complete and perfect state of Buddhahood. That is the ultimate result. And so it is the reason of attaining both these ultimate and temporary happinesses that we need to practice virtue, and we need to give up non-virtuous karma. Well, now, how is it that we need to practice virtue? Well, as we discussed yesterday, we can do virtuous things with our bodies, with our speech, and with our mind. But among these three different ways of practicing virtue, the primary way of practicing virtue is with our mind. It is like the root, it is like the crux of the matter. The body and speech are both like its servants. So the mind is like the king, and if we have power over the mind itself, then that is how we can do it. So we need to gain this control over our own minds. And when we have control over our own minds and bring our own mind to the virtuous in a virtuous direction, then our body and speech will naturally also go in a virtuous direction. And so for that reason, it is primarily the mind that we need to change. And so we need to make efforts. We need to strive at the methods to change our mind.
Tene ta tige semti la ta kasenga kapsula yosong na tene chodong ji ge de chi yul da ni ji che ge yore la tene nang semje on de se na rang semde le njung ge yore tene tela da ni zo che ge do ga yang na rang sem zo che ge do da ji se na tene zo rang sem de zo che wa re so wa re la tene te ya tanda jasi hiwa la ge so na tene tanda perna tene chilo ge yul de zangma chi go na zangma chi tu ma re pe pe ya yo re Pe yodu de la tangaran so kangba jemba gatane sasha yenda jelan ro na. Tene sasha tela che do ndaboda, serman ndaboda, hen ndabo mambu yorela. Tene tig ngaranga kangbala nepa chalga yorela. Tin nepa mechal ve tabla ta ti koa ga tumne ta ka bangam ka su koa ga tumne. Tene tig sasha kana sona koa ga yo ne ta kangbala japiki chedra zoguna. Tini sa chasan ti kovi tom gugurela, ti kovi tom tugo yo mare. Ta una kari chi gugu yo re se na, tini kangba korang la, tini kowa chi jari yo na. Tini ti sa ti chasan goi yo bata jikpan rogure. Tini korang kangba kana yo na ti kowa ti lendo. Nyom tu yung lom ti kani, ta ti nyom tu yung yo re la. Tini kangba la nepa zani yung yo mare. Pe te yendo chi dra. Yana ngala hedang jegendo chi dra de meba jegin so na. Dra jay meba sena dra nyi jong, dra nyi meba sena dra som jong. Tene dra mangdo ro mato. Tene yungi yo mare la. Tela kari gugre sena nang dra hedang de meba jegyo na. Tene chi dra de ranghin ki njam ro yo re la. 대견도 니 다부지나 착바지위게 열 니 다부지나 대다르도 티니시 난그 샘지 착바팀 펠나 치 열대 대점지 네바티 체르 로기요레라 니모바데 펠든 로기요레라 난그 샘 코랑그 차힌데 메나티니 나나 니라 소바 여나야 대라 미살게 차힌라디나 강알티히로 용기요 마레라 티니 티체르나 티니 조체와데 랑 샘리 좀
As we discussed yesterday, in our minds we often experience attachment or desire. We experience hatred or aversion. And when we experience them, then the external object, that is the friends and the enemies, are like the conditions that make this arise. But actually, the attachment and the hatred actually arise from our own internal mind. So we need to look at, well, which is most important? Is it the enemy that's most important, or is it the mind that is most important? And if we look at it, we see that the mind is what is most important. The great teacher Shantideva gave an example of this. If you are, this is an example about how it is that we, if we think that that we can't get rid of all the external objects, we can't cleanse all the external objects. Rather, we have to take care of our own mind. For example, if you are going someplace barefoot, if you're walking someplace else barefoot, and when you go, there are all sorts of stones and thorns and sharp things that cut your feet and hurt your feet, well, then you might think that you need to cover them all up. And so you need to get this big thing of leather, or I suppose actually in modern day we could use AstroTurf or something like that. So you take this big piece of leather and you want to cover it all up. Well, then eventually you have to cover the entire world. If you're going to keep going someplace, you have to cover everywhere so that you don't and get it. But that's not something that we can do. There just isn't enough leather or AstroTurf to be able to do that. And so what is it that we can do? Well, if we just cover our feet with leather, and just cover the feet with leather, and then it's as if the whole world is covered with leather, and we can walk wherever we want, and we won't hurt our feet anywhere. The leather will go with us, and our feet will remain lovely and spry. And so, as in that example, when you think about it, when there's an enemy who's outside and you feel hatred for them, you think, I got to get rid of that enemy. So you get rid of that enemy, and then, oh, there's another enemy. And so you get rid of that enemy, and then there's another enemy. And so then you just get more and more and more enemies. And so that doesn't work. Well, so what is it that we need to do? We need to take care of the internal enemy. The internal enemy is our hatred. And if we can get rid of the hatred, then and we can pacify the hatred, then naturally everyone outside will also be quite pacified. Everything will be nice and happy outside, it'll go well for us outside. It's the same thing when we have friends whom we have a lot of clinging, a lot of attachment to. If the attachment comes out of our internal mind, and if we don't do anything about it, and we then our attachment for the external object, the friend, grows stronger and stronger, and our afflictions, our disturbing emotions of attachment and jealousy and so forth will just get stronger and stronger and stronger. But if in our own mind we don't have this feeling of attachment, then we won't cling to our friends so much, and then we won't have the difficulties that come out of clinging to our friends. And so in this way, what is most important is the mind.
Tene ta teacher na rang semde la zoju yapo je tangju te kalche gi la sem la zoju tanya te la number 2 yor. Tene kunzo go on de se bisan la zoju tanya ton tendam go on de se bisan la zoju tanya number 2. Ta ti tap te ngaran so gi yapo je ta na ngaran so la ti tap number 2 yor la. Tap number 2 ge na ne ta tangbo kunzo go on de se na tene ngaran so samba ngemba nyen samba ngemba pangu gi ya ba je da samba sambo ji gu gi ya ba la ti je par se pa la kunzo sonju sen sitini samba sambo te pensem te kase yena yang pel to ba ton nesem te kase yena yang tene nyam to ba je ga tap la tene ta ti ge ta hi de nang du kunzo sonju sen je on de sen na lo jong ga dang wa ten ge yo lo jong ne tene samba sambo je ru jo samba ngemba pang do hewe ge tap la chen tene sin lo jong ga dang wa tene ta lo jong ga dang wa la tene ton le ni bo per margam se tene rang dewa te yin la jimba tang yin samba tang rang se ku nor long che la so pa yin la jimba tang thup na ang tang bo la jimba tang ma thup na tang te tang yin samba sen ji ko te yin do rang la dewa ta gewa la so pa tang ji yin la tang yin samba ko zombo te pel ne tene yin je dungal la so pa chur leng yin samba yin la jamba ta ni je hyu chen bo ji pel ne yin je dungal de chur leng yin samba tene ton le ni po pel mar gam se tene pa rang la ye pa ti yin la jamba ta yin la pembe che to la yin la ye pe dungal la so pa rang gi chur leng tene ton le chi tene te ni long la chen ti sa se te o la tene gamba la so pa ta tene ke tap nang ne tene samba zangbo chi samba zangbo chi pa la tene shongchu ke san je la chi shongchu ke san je la chi ne tene san chen tang je la pembe gong che par chen chi rim ji sang ji chi kompong to pa la njwa ta khasen shongchu san ji damba na wa rela te ta bu shongchu san ji damba lemba ta shongchu ji san gamba la so pa ton ling ge ko ne chongju ku san gamba la so pa tak taki number na so pa la tene sem ti ju da ya te la lo jong ga dang se ge yo la te tari ge ka la ji tang ge te mi de shong ge me ngo ya po sen jin la yang pemba rang la yang pemba nyen mong pa hiwa ta tap che par jin re te na yang tanda ti ge me ngo ti tanda me ngo ndi ka so la ki da teng ge yo ma re la tene ta me ngo ndi ka so la kunzo zo ma yin ba dan dang ti zo teng ge yo re.
And so that is why we need to transform our minds. And in order to it is important for us to transform our own minds. And in order to transform our minds, there are in general 2 different ways we can do it. We can transform our minds in terms of the relative, and we can transform our minds in terms of the ultimate. And so if we look at all the various different methods closely, we see that they actually can be subsumed within these two different categories, the transforming our minds in the relative way and in the ultimate way. These are the two methods. And of these two methods, then, if we are to try to transform our minds through relative methods, then these are what we need. What we need to do is we need to get rid of all of our ill will. We need to develop goodwill. And when we do that, that is what we call relative bodhicitta. Relative bodhicitta. So we need to develop our goodwill and we need to diminish our ill will, and there are the methods for doing this. And these are the methods of developing relative bodhicitta. And in particular, there are the methods of in the instructions on mind training, or lojong. The instructions on mind training. These are methods that develop our goodwill, our kind heart for others. And by these methods, we can make efforts at getting rid of the ill will towards others. And so, by following when we follow the instructions on mind training, we can do this. And the main method we use to do this is by practicing tonglen, or sending and receiving. So sending and receiving should be practiced alternately. These two should ride the breath. And so here we have the visualization of tonglen, or sending and taking, where we visualize that we are giving away all our happiness, all our goodness. We're giving away all our happiness and goodness. We then think, if we are able to actually give away food and clothing and money and things like that, then that is great. But if we aren't able to do that, then we have the motivation in our mind that we are giving things away, that we are giving our happiness. We are giving our happiness away. We are sending our happiness to others. And at the same time, we are visualizing that we are taking their suffering. We are taking their suffering away from them. We are taking the suffering, and by doing this, then we develop our love and compassion. Our love and compassion increase. We think to ourselves, I'm taking away their suffering. And then through doing that, then we meditate. And so in this way, we meditate upon the sending our happiness and the receiving or taking the suffering alternately. And in that way, we send out our happiness and we take in all the other suffering. And we meditate upon doing this by following the breath. So we do this on the basis of the breath. And so this is a method for developing a kind heart. And by developing a kind heart, then we are able to develop bodhicitta. And then from developing bodhicitta, we will be able eventually to reach the state of perfect benefit for all sentient beings. We'll actually be able to bring benefit to sentient beings. Through this motivation, we will come to the state of Buddhahood. And so yesterday we took the Bodhisattva vows, and as we discussed yesterday, we took the Bodhisattva vows, and so first you take the vows and then you meditate upon the vows. And one of the ways to meditate upon this is to do this practice of tonglen, or sending and taking. And so there are many different methods along this line, and these all are included within the type of method called the instructions on mind training, the instructions on lojong. Now, these are wonderful instructions. They're great instructions. They're very helpful. They're very helpful for other beings. They're very helpful for ourselves. But these instructions are not taught in this particular set of instructions. Rather, in this instructions, rather than teaching the relative methods, here what is primarily taught are the ultimate methods for transforming our minds.
Tene tatela tati tandam ge on the city tene tati zorang semdroati kalchewa takam la tene te kasing control ransem la on top na jin dani kongi jone menu ta rang sem ti yaboji jona jin ta dranda boji jona ya tel hedang ge gone rang yen ne pa yung yo mare Nin Rinpoche Chonaya Tela Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche Nepayunga Mare Kongi Jung Pene Menu Tene Ransen La On Matop Na Kondo Son Kondo De Jung Ta Rang Sem Te Tesi Sochu Tang Jurchu Tang Matop Na Kondo Son Kondo De Jung Chadong Inpo Hyula Doli Yongwe Tene Rangin Ke Deshatong Hedong Inpo Te Hyula Doli Yongwe Tena Gadu Zongi Chodong So Tamchi Zawa Sanla Tupar Higu Kanga Zawa de Sempre Sanla Tupar Higu de Sanla Semte Kalchewa Imbate Hiju de Tatango Zawa Takaranso Karere Sena Zawa San Imbate Hiju de Kalchegi Warela Tiniteya Tanda Sanji Jomdinde Takutsi Kong Lojuga on the Siena Yang Tene ta sanji ge tambi chue tembe kapsula tene ta tambi chue de dudu de la ta ni sumanwa jepa ta ni sumanwa tawa ta ni sumanwa se sumare la tene te jepa ta ni sumanwa ta ba je yin na tangbo de pa senyam jin ta la manwa sumare tene kon ti kapsula jalbo chimbu ge seje tene te lan de yan long ji samji ma cha pa yo na ya de la Chakpatan Khenpa Tetsam Sena, Pempa Yo Mare, Tati, Yo Gugre, Sonet, Ni Jasi de Pa Yo, Ni Jasi Kandayan, Longche, Tat, Kalbangamu Kasala, Chitanga, Lumba la Yaji Chimbo Menaya, Ta Jabo Chimbo la Pemasi Pendepe Longche, Jachimbo Yabarella, Tindayan Longche de Chasan, la Nimbo Mebaze ne Pa Yo, Ni Pepare, Tetambo, de Basenyon Gentala Manu, Tanla. 다 대지에서 같이 날도 근타라 마는 제바데 템바레라 드니 같이 날도 근타 빵베게 쳇도 당보 드니 산지 좀 된데 까와찌네 로투라 드니 베 메시베 까와찌네 드니 사마 뉴뉴 드니 추뉴뉴 드니 베 띵엔젠 코나 젠두세네 드니 같이 까까찌 쳔보 로투라 까와찌 바레라 드니 티 까와찌 비제바티 산지게 요마레 드니 티처나 같이 날도 간탈라 마누와 쳇도 드니 콩게 드니 힐라 예 드니 추자 다 디기 요라 드니 티까지 날도 간타 빵빵 Tini tikapsala konglan kor nga dizombo se nga yuwarela. Tini nga dizombo ke ta tangbo sanji kawa yapu ji tuba. Pe kali ja tuba rita. Ta ko tama sen popa hyom. Tini popa cho. Ta kanga sa tong tu ja. Ta ko al mahjong wale se ne. Tini kongzo ngolu jani chimbarela. ngolu jani chimbarela. Ta kongri kero ma tini. Kongri kero ma ina ya. Tini te zawa te. Tene konge ta jitang katsi ngaldup ton depa senyam ni jintala tene sanje ge yomare ta ona kangi sanje ge yore sena rang sem dolwala tene sem rang sem tin dolne tingen zin chebar jina tene ngambar zobar sanje ge yore teacher na tene jagar doji den da petne songju jan hin ge tongto tene ngarang ta ndana la tini sanje bachi chege yin samba tuga pemba chimpi gwane tini tingen zin gambala tini ngambar zopar sanje ne tini kari nangre se na tani kongri ge gona ta pe ngaran pe tozi ge yin ten zu cha sangwa to pangza ten zu cha sangwa pang yapu chungwa re tini chu yapu sapa hewa tuba tang chalwa ta tindi netong yapu chi ngarang chenpa re te yinna ngarang hipa te yinna tena yingi hivoji ha kotu ge yo ma re ta kotu sa ma re ta te le tombi chu ma hipa ta ngarang naksal ge ne emba la tige tingen zin chepar ching dewa la nyamsu nyong ne de na yapu re sang ne teni te zi chu ma songwa la yupa re
in terms of the ultimate methods for taking control of our own mind, for transforming our mind. It's primarily our mind that we need to tame. It is most important to tame our mind. And so picking up where we left off yesterday, it reads, "Once you master your own mind, neither friend nor enemy will be able to benefit you or cause you harm." And so if our minds are good, then if our minds are under control, and our minds are good, then when the conditions of the enemy comes up, then if at that point we feel anger, then this is going to cause harm. But if we don't feel any anger at that point, then naturally there will be no harm to ourselves or others. Likewise, when we see a friend or someone we feel attached to, then we will not feel the attachment. We will not be harmed in that by any way. And so if you don't gain control over your mind, and so if you cannot take control, if you cannot have the power over your own mind, if you cannot take control over your own mind, where anger and attachment and anger will automatically well up wherever you go and whatever you say. And so here, when naturally, wherever you go, if you don't have this control over your mind, naturally wherever you go, you'll feel the attachment, you'll feel anger. It'll naturally just well up over that. And so you must understand that your mind is the root of all joy and sorrow, good and evil, attachment and anger. And so we need to know our own mind. It is important that we know our own mind. It is the root of everything is that we know our own mind, and this is very important. There's a story about this, a story from the life of the Buddha. And when the Buddha taught the Dharma, he said that we should not fall into the extremes. And when you talk about the extremes, there are the extremes of conduct and there are the extremes of view. And in terms of the extremes of conduct, the first extreme of conduct is falling into the extreme of desirable things. And so this is shown by when the Buddha was born. He was born as a prince. And he was born as a very wealthy prince, and he had all the possessions and everything he needed, but he did not have any attachment or clinging to that, and he saw that having attachment and clinging to that would not be beneficial, and so he was able to give it up. He gave up his kingdom and he left. Now, of course, at that time there was not a whole lot of development, and so the countryside as a whole was not very developed and wasn't very rich. But even at that time, kings were very wealthy and had a lot of things, everything that they more than everything they needed to enjoy. But he saw that none of that had any essence, none of that made any difference. And so he gave up all of these pleasurable things. He gave it all up, and he went off. And so this is not falling to the extreme of desirable things. The second extreme is falling to the extreme of austerities and difficulties. And so we should not fall to the extreme of austerities and difficulties. And so after he left the palace, the Buddha went to practice austerities. And he spent 6 years practicing austerities in the forest. And when he was spending those 6 years, he had very little food, he had very little water, and he just practiced. He strove single-mindedly to develop his meditation. He practiced austerities and difficulties. He didn't wash. He just sat there and did this. And he spent 6 years doing this. And he realized at the end of 6 years that this would not bring him to Buddhahood. No matter how much he did it, it would not bring him to Buddhahood. And so at that point, he gave that up. He did not fall to the extreme of austerities and difficulties. And so he ate food, he drank water, and he took a bath. And so, sounds nice. So he realized that falling to the extreme of difficulties and austerities would not bring him to the Buddhahood. Now, at the same time, there was the good group of 5 disciples who was with him, and they thought to themselves, at first, this guy was great. I mean, he was like really doing all the austerities, doing all the difficulties. And it was really good. He was really trying hard for this, and this is great. And then he must have been discouraged or lost his heart or something like that. And now he's eating. And what is this about? And so they got really kind of disappointed in that. And so they revolted. And they left. They revolted and they said, no, we aren't going to have anything to do with him. And they left. And so, here, actually, what it is, the main thing is that we should not fall to the extreme of difficulties and austerities, and we should not fall to the extreme of the sense pleasures. Neither of these extremes will bring us to Buddhahood. Well, what is it that will bring us to Buddhahood? Well, we need to tame our own mind. And by taming our own mind, then we'll be able to develop the samadhi meditation that will bring us to complete and perfect Buddhahood. And so the Buddha realized this, and then he went to Bodh Gaya, and he sat underneath the tree of enlightenment, and he thought to himself, I am going to sit here and meditate until I attain complete and perfect awakening. And he did that, and he sat in samadhi meditation, and he attained the perfect, complete and perfect Buddhahood. And after he attained this complete and perfect awakening of Buddhahood, well, what is it that he did? Well, at that time, he had perfected all of the qualities of realization, and he had completely abandoned everything that needed to be abandoned, and he realized the profound, peaceful, and unfabricated Dharma. And he realized, I know this profound, peaceful Dharma, but this Dharma that I have found is something that others aren't going to be able to get it. They just aren't going to be able to understand it. And so I think it's better for me to just sit in the forest and not teach the Dharma, not speak, and I'll just sit here and sit down and enjoy my beautiful meditation. And so he sat in perfect samadhi in the forest without teaching the Dharma.
Tene ta tige ji la tene la changpata. Jajingi solwa tabne tambi chuchin kolo korwar kol. Tene tambi chuchin kolo korwar kharji ye ne. Tene tambi chuchin kapsala tangpo loma sola chuchin gogre se ta kongre. Tingen zenji go ne zay undu tela. Ta loma kasing huma ngolo jangking ngate yabu yaba zayare la. Tene ngabo te kavadu zidu tela tene varanasla yuare la. Tene tena la chuchi kono korwe ki chito kong ya pe. Pe undu tela tene konzo loma ngabo te yuare la. Loma ngabo te ki sena a ta ti kapsala sanji kin sen la. Siddhartha se tenrup. Tena tamchi trupa se yuare la ta. Siddhartha le yungu yuare le ungu tu. Koran pe tangbo manjen jasi jasang yu. Tene manjan, tene ta kato ya chi mato, ta kanya majung kente ta le ungu le yundu tel ta ngaranso ya langa mlang, suwa ya mazi, tene che kanya kecha ya mihi, ta karanso ko kana andro da tena nga ya, koran kanlang nguelin rabu ngaran, su cheya yo mare se koran su tuisi, ta ngaranso su chik nguelin rabu ya bu che mayung si laparela. Tene sanji tena pe undu ziji chenpon rabu cheke, che ya lang, ni ya lang, tene kanga o ya pe, ana yo se tene koto kanga tende seju chunga, nelen rabu yabu seju chunga re, se goba tende ziji rabu cheke chunga re la. Tene ziji rabu te chung ne, tene tambi chuyo sang ne, tambi chuyo chung kolo korwa re la, tene tambi chuyo chung kolo korwa ke kapso, ta tambi chuyo, 당보 순두 데라 다 가리게 고네 성국에 와르세나 다때 산지 좀 된데 깨지름 받다고 성세 당보 단제 근접조 제바데 데니 림비 그 단담 데니 림비 그 다투 그 맹어 된소 성네 틱바 성세 틱바 중우 틱바 쳔보 송호도지 틱바 성데 렘지 송하르지 바리.
And so while the Buddha was sitting there in the forest, then the gods Brahma and Indra came down and they supplicated him to turn the wheel of the Dharma, and the Buddha agreed. He agreed to turn the wheel of the Dharma. And when he agreed to turn the wheel of the Dharma, he thought to himself, well, what students shall I teach the Dharma to first? And then he sat in meditation, and as he looked within his meditation, he saw that there were the 5 students who had revolted against him or rebelled against him a few a few days ago. And so and he thought to them, oh, I better teach them. And so where are they? Well, they were in Varanasi, and so he went to Varanasi in order to turn the wheel of Dharma to them. And when he got there, the 5 disciples were there. The good group of 5 was there. Now, at that time, the Buddha at that time was named Siddhartha. Siddhartha means accomplishing all means, so the all-accomplishing, the one who brings benefit to everyone. And so they said, okay, here comes Siddhartha. Now, of course, Siddhartha is someone, this guy, first he was a prince, he couldn't hack that. He gave that up. Then he wanted to do all the austerities and difficulties, he couldn't hack that either. And so he gave that up. And so we just shouldn't have anything at all to do with him. Okay, so they made this agreement. None of us is going to say a word to him. None of us is going to listen to a single thing that he says. We're not going to acknowledge his existence in any way at all. We're just going to be, here. And so then the Buddha came. And when the Buddha came, then he was really glorious appearance, and they saw that. And the first one got up and went over to the Buddha, and then a second got up and went over to the Buddha, and then a third, and then they all got up and they were all sitting around the Buddha asking for the Dharma, kneeling as we did yesterday in that very comfortable position. And at that point, it was because of the real glory of the Buddha that they were able to come. He was so splendid that they had to come, and he taught them the Dharma. He turned the wheel of Dharma for them. And at that time, what was the wheel of Dharma that he turned? What was the first wheel of Dharma that he turned? Well, at that first point, he realized that there was an order to the way you had to teach things. There was an order to how you had to teach. And so first he taught about the relative. And then he taught about the ultimate truth. And then he taught the instructions on attaining the ultimate result. And so in this way, he turned the 3 different vehicles. And so I'll go over that again for you. So he first taught primarily the relative truth. Then he secondly taught the ultimate truth. And then following that, he taught the instructions on attaining the ultimate result. And in this way, turned the 3 wheels. Taught the 3 vehicles. First, the wheel of the foundation vehicle, or the Theravada, the foundation vehicle, then the wheel of the great vehicle, the Mahayana, and then the wheel of the secret mantra Vajrayana. And so he taught them in this order.
Tene ta te na ne tangpo tipa chungu gi chujin ko lo ko du de la ta tsawa demba ye sungare la demba ye ge tsawa ngoma te kandel tu yo are se na konsa ga da me pa la tu yo konsa ga da me pa de song gu pe junsen de kandel se na ngaran cho ge ta jitin korwe ge ne la dungal number na so pan jung yo are te jung ge tsawa te le la ro le le te kanchi ni sogi yore se ne nyem bal role ge nyem ba te kandi si pangu gre ta te yapo che ta gu gre la nyem ba te pangu gre nyem ba te ya zawa dor do na chodom on som sin de sha he dong tim som yore la nyem ba de sha he dong tim som te tang de sha pangi ngan de sha che ge me nga he dang che ge me som ne pang na pang tu ge yore bi sin na pang tu yo mare la te kurangi gi je yung ge yore ta te la ta hi kari si gu ge yore sin de sha to he dang to tim som ge jo de pang gu ge yore jo de kandi rin du de na jo de da dun zum bare de yore da dun zum ba te nga nyom dun zum ba te yo cha du tene ta te la ti gi chen ji te nga ya bo ta chi bo gu gu du som ben de sha ta nga la ne pa chal ge du som bi he dang ta tene nga i rang yi ma to ba tim te jung gi yo la tene tsawa te jo te la te ne jung du kong sa ge da dun zum ba te pang gu yo kong sa ge da dun zum ba te pang nu ge thap la ta nga da dun zum ge me nga dong zin pang gi yin som ni pang tu ge ri si na pang tu ge yo ma re Dancing Toma Mepani Tala took part to Yorella, dancing Mepachi is on Mepachi to your Mare. Mepachi Katula Mepachi to your Mareti in a Tizawatilla Koran. Dancing till Zawa Yapuche Yomare, Zawati Mepachina, Yagati Mepachi to Yorel. Zawa Yapu Mepa Kandi Yoresena Korang dot and Zinsiki Yulti, dot sinking jeta, dot care sinking jay, dot on dogrins and bani Yorella. Tiniti dot on dogrins and bani on the Shedu Tilla. Tinguni dot sinking teta, dog, nai sinking tini the Kabadu Tena. When you are me, gentle Korang Nai, Jonathan say. Tini Nai re, something say. Kapkala Nai re, Jonathan say. Zaini, Tini Tig, Nada Nairins and Baton, Dot and Dagrins and Banila, Tini, Niamon Mambuji, Tini, Koran, Korwala Jam, Tende Yungi order. Tini Tizawati made you tell Zawati Mepa Yapo, Hina, Tini Dottons and Baton, Dagrins and Batirangi. Hetugi order. Dot Dagrins and Bati ranking Hetop nothing, Yamon Batinzo ranking Hetugi order. Teacher na Gonzaga dot me bati, Zordina.
When the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma of the foundation vehicle, he primarily taught the Four Noble Truths. Now, what is the root of the Four Noble Truths? The root of the Four Noble Truths comes down to the selflessness of the individual. And the reason that he taught the selflessness of the individual is that we experience all sorts of suffering in samsara. And the root of all the suffering comes down to karma. And what is it that karma comes out of? Karma depends upon our afflictions, our disturbing emotions. It depends upon the afflictions. And so we need to get rid of the afflictions. And how is it that we can get rid of the afflictions? Well, we need what the afflictions are. They primarily come down to desire, hatred, and delusion. So there are these three: the desire, hatred, and illusion. And if we think to ourselves, I'm not going to go there. I'm just not going to feel desire. I'm not going to feel hatred. Are we going to be able to get rid of it? We think, I'm not going to feel hatred anymore. Is it going to stop? It won't stop. We can't just stop it in that way. It happens naturally. And this is because we have been habituated from beginningless time to this. And so because we have habituated for beginningless time, the three poisons of desire, hatred, and delusion just naturally happen. So we need to get rid of them. Well, how are we going to get rid of them? Well, the way we can get rid of them is that these all come out of, we can't get rid of them we can't get rid of them directly, but we can get rid of them because we can get rid of their cause. We can get rid of the cause of them. And the cause of that is clinging to a self, clinging to me. We think me, we cling to a sense of me. And we think, I want something good. And then when we think, I want something good, we feel desire. And we think, I don't like that, and then we feel hatred or aversion. And then when we don't understand the nature of the self, then we experience delusion. And so it's this thinking me, this clinging to an individual self. That is what we need to get rid of. Well, now, can't we just think to ourselves, oh, I'm not going to cling to a self anymore. I'm going to stop right now. Was that going to do it? No, we can't. That's not going to do it. Well, and the reason it won't do it is because we have this habit, again, from beginningless samsara of clinging to me, clinging to mine. And so if we just think, I'm going to go cold turkey, I'm not going to do it anymore, then we can't do that. We can't do it, although we can't do it directly. If we look at the root of it, what is the root of this clinging to a self, clinging to me? It's actually, there is no root. And so if we see that there is no root, that root really doesn't exist, then naturally it will not happen. And so the reason there's no root is that if we look for the object that we are clinging to as me, as a self, where is it? When we talk about clinging to a self, often we talk about clinging to me or clinging to mine. And so when we talk about clinging to me in terms of that, then we think, oh, this is me, and we cling to it, or we think, this is mine, I want that thing, this is mine. But really, when we look at what is this me, where is this me, we cannot really find it anywhere. And so when we see that there is really no me that we can cling to, then naturally the thought of clinging to me is going to be pacified. And likewise, there's no mine. When we want mine, where is the me who is hanging on to something else? We can't find it. And because we can't find it, when we see that, then we won't be able to cling to a me or mine anymore. And when we're no longer able to cling to me or mine, then the afflictions will naturally be pacified. And then, excuse me, I got that wrong. So it is out of clinging to a me or a mine that when we cling to a me or a mine, then we want things or we don't like them. And this makes all of the afflictions arise, all the disturbing emotions. And because of the disturbing emotions, then we wander in samsara. But if we realize that that me and mine really doesn't exist at all, then this clinging to a me and mine will just naturally be pacified. And if that is pacified, then the afflictions are naturally pacified. And so that is why we meditate upon the selflessness of the individual.
Tene ta te yang da dang da gren zamba ni yore la. Ti na ni da gren zamba te pe ta na la song ta na tene te da gren zamba ke yor te me pa te hi la wan da bu. Tene te la tene da dan zamba te ya yor te me pa hi la wan da bu yore la. Per na nden da bu ji na ngarang chore nde chotel da gren zaine nde nge chore. Tinguni sina ngecho yimbi junsen kanyo mari choji logo yore glass da choji logo yore tenga yimbi junsen kanyo mari te dewi gintong sona ngecho de dewi gintong son kari te la tinde sam la tini te sina tini te la nyemo ba jege yore le nguni sina te ngecho la ngada chuni bada la nderwa kanya yo mari chocho ngarang tini te la nderwa hiro yo mari te yinaya me yendla ngecho re so tini te la te ne yela hyedan je tini yo.
So clinging to me and mine, when we think about clinging to me and mine, if we first think about clinging to mine, then we realize that there's really no object there. Then if we understand that clinging to mind is illusory, then it's easy to realize that clinging to me is also illusory, that there really is no me to cling to. For example, if I think about this being my water, and this is my water on my table, it's mine. And so I'm going to cling to it. It's mine. But actually, what is this water? Someone took a glass and put it here and poured water into it, and it's my water in it. And so now I say it's my water. But what is the reason for saying it's my water? There's really no reason for saying it. Now, if we take this, I've got this water here, and if Rinpoche were to come over here and drink the water, then I'd say, hey, he drank my water. Rinpoche drank my water, and I'd get angry. And so the afflictions arise out of that. But actually, if you look at it, between mine and between me and between the water, what's the connection? The water's the water, me, I'm me. And there's no real connection there between the two of them. And so how is it that this water is mine? And so, but even though there is no... Even though there's no connection between me and my water, even though there's no connection between me and my water, while there's no mind really there, we think that there is. And if we realize that mind doesn't exist, then it'll naturally be or then we think it that way, then we get angry about it.
tene ta te tabu la tene te hindu ngarang lu ngarang sem tene lu dan sem ni bola kapka la ngayen yang den senge kapka la tene ngasem sene tene ngarang yang yenda je ya pandabu kapka la nglubo sena tene ngarang lupo te ngarang mayin pa ngarang do den senge je yang yenda je ya pandabu ta tene ten me pa uni do de ka ba yo ba de ha ko yo ma la tene te ta bu ge do de me pa hi ne da do de uni mendu a som ne tingen zen je go ne tang bo tu som go ne hi tene tingen zen je go ne ni hi che par ji na tene kong so ge do me pa to na nyem ma pa ten zo rem ji pon ne da cham pa to ge yo la tene jun sin teacher na rang sem te dolu ge tab la 다 탑통보 티파 멤버가 티파 중국어 온데시나 드니 공사가 다음에 받den게요 아래
Likewise, we sometimes think of our body and our mind, and we think of our body and mind, we think my body and my mind. But sometimes when we think about the body, sometimes we think that I am the body and mind, and sometimes we think that it is my mind and it's my body. We think that we're something other that is possessing it. We think this is my mind, as if the me is something else. Or we think this is my body, as if the me is again something else. But and so sometimes it's me, sometimes it's mine, and it's really not certain what it is. And so in this way, if we look for it, we can't really understand what is this self. We can't find anything that we really know is the self. And so when we realize that that self really isn't there, then we can practice meditation on that. And so first we study about it, and then we become certain about it, and then after we are certain, we can then meditate upon it and realize the selflessness of the individual. By realizing that, we're able to give up all the afflictions, and when we give up all the afflictions, then we attain the status of arhat, or foe destroyer. And so this is a method for taming our own mind, and this is the first method, the method of the foundation vehicle of realizing the selflessness of the individual.
tene ta te jesu tipa chimbu ge dongala chutom ji dongni imbala temba kam kolu parpa tene hiraji paru de simba tembarela hiraji paru de simba ten du chutom ji dongyin da me pa ta tela gongsa ge da me pa to chu ji da me pa si ta ngaran so ge zawa nyem ba je ge yore de yendo korwen chunho na ba na zo ba yung ge yore de yin yang korwen chunho ten zo rangin ge madrupa tene tamji dongni imba 다 텐데 때네 다 돈이 게 빼라고 다 텐데 야난 게 와래 돼 이나야 다 주담지 마드바 되네 돈보 보라고 된죠 당연히 이제 이거나 잭 요구기 와래라 되네 잭대 매봐 님바 되네 보라고 된죠 돌처럼 당가라서 돌게 넘발라 몸보 돌몸보 뒤발라텐 치잉우 보텐서 돌몸보 뒤발라텐네 종아티마도 요 말이라 안테네 페나 ndrui phumbo ndaboji na ndrumangbo ndubala te ne ndrui phumbo de yung yore te yendo ngaransu lupo chi ngupo thamji la somo tana tene thamji ta dultring ge namba dultring mambo ndubala te ne chungwa cheita tene dultring te la ya heb do tana dultring si dodu che me pa khanga mangbo ge ngupo mangbo la te ne yung yo pa tene ta tende la ribi ke ta hin che pa la tene dultring ya nguni ta sem ge nongcha la kharwa che re ma do ta na dultring se ne ma du pan da bo ta tende ta perna ngaran so ka ta te ju tam ji ge na ne sung ge yo la tene ta te la ngarang ge ro hi ge yo ma re te yin ya tanda seripa ge physics ta ji se be ka la yan tene ngupo tenzo ngupo ra ba tenzo ki da ma du pa tam ji rang yin ge ta nu pan da bo je la tene sung ge ya ba ha ko ge yo re se tende se ge do la ta tini pa sher san ji ji sum ba ta thank you tam ji gan na repeat do bata tini seri pa ga ta ji se ba tenzo pa chi ki ba da mo bo ra ba tenzo madu ba mo bo ra ba tenzo madu na tin chu tam ji to ni im ba la ten ne tini nya mo ba ji we gi yul nda bo cha dong ji we gi yul nda bo kan ya me ba ta ti to ni gi ne lu te to na chu tam ji gi ne lu to ba ro yo re.
Then there are the teachings of the Mahayana, the teachings of the Mahayana that all phenomena are emptiness, the teachings of the middle turning of the wheel of Dharma. This is where the Prajnaparamita sutras are primarily taught. And so this teaches primarily that all phenomena are empty and selfless. And so we have the selflessness of the individual. We have the selflessness of phenomena or dharmas. Dharma and phenomena are like synonyms here. So the selflessness of individual and the selflessness of phenomena. And so at root we have the afflictions and we have all of the confused appearances of samsara. But these confused appearances of samsara cannot actually be proven to be anything. They are not naturally established as anything. They are empty. And so, because they are empty in this way, we cannot say that they can actually be established as anything. They cannot be proven to be anything, really. When we think about the gross things that we have, the coarse things that we have, if we have a coarse thing, then, well, it either has to be a single thing, or if it isn't a single thing, it has to be multiple. But if we look for a single thing, we can't find a single thing because it's all made up of all these atoms or all these particles. There are all these tiny particles that are all collected together, that are all agglomerated together, and so they're all collected together. So we have all the external things that we see, they are all just an agglomeration of tiny particles. They're all just tiny particles brought together. Other than that, there's really nothing. And so we can't really say that they're anything. For instance, if we have a pile of dirt, we'd say, oh, there's a pile there, but actually it's just all this dirt that's put together. It's like just a heap of stuff put together. And so we think that there's one solid thing, but actually if we look at it, it's all these other little things, a whole lot of other things that are all brought together. And so because of that, you cannot say that actually there's any really real thing there in the coarse thing. You can't find the real coarse thing there. And so this is proving it through logic. You can prove it through logic, that they're all put together by the particles. And when we think about the particles are really nothing other than just something that appears to our mind. They are not something, in reality, they cannot actually be established. We cannot actually find them in reality. This is taught in the words of the Buddha. It is taught in all of the treatises, and I really don't know the subject well, but I think that in science, in physics, they also say that coarse physical objects cannot be established as anything, that it's just naturally out of the capacity or out of the power that things arise, but actually there's no real thing there. It's just all the capacity and power coming together. And so here they're almost pretty much the same. You have the words of the Buddha, the teachings and the commentaries and the views of the scientists. They're all saying that these coarse phenomena cannot be proven. They cannot be really established. And when we realize that they cannot be really established, then we see that all phenomena are emptiness. And when we realize that all phenomena are emptiness, then we realize that the objects that we feel attachment to, the objects that we feel hatred for, do not have any real existence of their own. And so we realize the emptiness. And by realizing this emptiness, we are able to realize the nature of all phenomena.
Tene dachi nguboyong te tardo doni to tangbo ripita chi sine he tene ti tain to gam tene doni imbala he parela Tene Tegendo Nangi Hipa inayo, Duga on the Sede, Tangbo, Du Lo, Dawa, Hya, Mambo, Dabo Yorede. Inayo, Upo Tomaga on the Sena, Kejima. Kejima Tea Rimbi Tana, Kejima Hira, Madupa, Dabo Yor, Tai Hipa na Keji Chami Son. Tate on Tony Nambala, Tena Papa de Chi Yul. Mupotan Nangi Hipa Tamji Rangingi Madupa Data Tena Papne, Tati Tento Gum, Ne Yamne Che, Tati Rola, Tati Tings and the Comparatum Rola, Paru to Timbatrosi, Paru to Timbatro de Nani, Zo Hiraji Paru to Timbasidu, Tati Tunik and Nelu Jetawa in the Topa Tea, Mondi Double Maimpa, Konanguni, Sam Getting, Nehi Cheprachi, Nehi Cheprachi, Nitita and the Gombeg, Sanong Yapuchong, Tatela Hiraji Paru to Timbasungi Yorel, Hiraji Paru to Timbag Tola, Tini Jimba Paru to Timbaton, Trimji Paru to Timbaton, Zebaton, Zendu, something to Paru to Timbangati, Trona would go and compare to Tony, Tini Tatu can drive Topper Sepati, Tipachimburg, Lamji on the city dinner.
And so when we look at external things, when we look at them, we can analyze them with logic and we can come to know what they're like, that we can meditate upon that, and then through the meditation we can really come to understand and know what they are. It's similar with our own mind. In our mind, it's in terms of time. And we can think of our mind in terms of years, or of months, or days, or hours, or whatever. But when we look at it, actually our mind is changing moment by moment by moment. And so each is the mind in any given moment, can it be established as anything? Well, some people say that the mind has like indivisible moments of time, But actually, if you look at it, the indivisible moments of time don't really work out either. They cannot be proven to actually exist. And so they are also emptiness. And so in this way, the external objects are empty. The internal mind is also, and the internal mind also cannot, by its nature, cannot be proven to be anything. And so we think about that, and when we know that, then we meditate upon it. And when we meditate upon it, and for our meditation needs a companion. It needs a helper. And the helper that it needs is the 6 paramitas, the 6 transcendences. And the most important of these is the prajna paramita, the perfection of knowing, or the perfection of full knowing. This is understanding or realizing the dharma nature, the dharmata, realizing the dharmata just as it is. And this is not a case of just blind faith. This is a question of looking at it, understanding it, and really developing true certainty about it. Then when you have the certainty, then you meditate upon it. And then through the meditation, you gain clearer and clearer perception of it. And that clear perception of this nature of things, that is what is the prajna paramita. Now, as a helper for developing the prajna paramita, we need the other 5 paramitas of the transcendent generosity, transcendent patience, transcendent discipline, transcendent patience, transcendent diligence, and transcendent meditation. So these are helpers that help us develop our wisdom so that we will help it develop so that we will be able to attain the ultimate result of Buddhahood. And so this is taught as the path of the great vehicle.
Tipa membiga tipa chungu on the sepatan, tene tejendo tanda tipa chimbuga on the sepate, tanda garanzo pet tarwe, tambe chuga on the sena, tene tipa chungu konsa dami gani, nyamni nangi warvesena, tanda hirati nangi mare la. Tejendo tipa chimbuga toni kona gangi warvesena, te akira gangi mare, te. 다오나 카레 강게 요레스는 송호 도지티피 맹어 데 강게 요레 Gongi yore te yinayo tusam sepe kapsula. Tini konsa ka dot mepa, tipa chungu ka konsa ka dot mepa kandesi ne tena pagwe yabata. Tipa chimbu ka kasu chutanji toni kandesi ne tena pagwe yabatela. Tusam nangi yore. Tusam nangwa te che se na. Tini ngaranzo intellectual rapota taga si somotani. Rete yinaya ti intellectual ka tani te si netang te yabo che. Hakona, tini tiki songho doji tipi ki senji nelu ka tento, mengo ka tento, gong du te la, nishi tan ichi che du, pe, pento chimbo, shiro, yore la, teacher na, tini tanda, tini pe to tarwe ke, tambi chu ke, nyamlin nangwa po, tang tusam nangwa po, tamchi chi, tangpo te la tusam na. Ti tusam nang kasula tipa chungu ke tawa, tipa chimbu ke tawa tinsu yapu jangi warela. Ti jangwa tela, tini ti tagasi jangwa mahimba. Tupi taja jebe ke chito jangwa mahimba. Uni nyamli ni tamambe kapsula yung tela ichi chi, o ti ingi duga soni, ngishi chi tapanda puche yungi warela. Teacher na, tindi ke netang la, tusam nana yung pe pento chimbu yore.
And so when we practice in terms of these teachings of the foundation vehicle and the greater vehicle, then when they came to Tibet and we study the Dharma, when we practice the Dharma in Tibet, do we actually practice the view of selflessness from the foundation vehicle? Well, actually, no, we don't really follow the do a whole lot of meditation practice on that. And do we follow the methods of meditating on emptiness from the Mahayana? Well, actually, we don't really spend a whole lot of time meditating upon that. What we primarily meditate upon is the instructions of the secret mantra Vajrayana. However, when we are studying, we try to fully comprehend the foundation vehicle view of the lack of an individual self. And we try to fully comprehend the great vehicle view of emptiness. Now, when you think about this, you might think that this is just some sort of mere intellectual exercise. We're just thinking about things for thinking's sake, and it's just an intellectual exercise. But actually, it's not that. It's really a way of coming to understand how things are. And then when we do that, come to the practices of practicing the instructions from the secret mantra Vajrayana on the nature of the mind, we are able to have real certainty in them. We're able to really believe them fully. And so when we do that, then this is extremely beneficial. That is why in Tibet, when we practice the Dharma, all of those who are doing Dharma practice and all of those who are studying, we first study the view of the foundation vehicle, and we study the view of the great vehicle. And we don't just study them for studying's sake. That's not why we do it. Rather, we do it because when we come to practice, that it is by doing this that we'll come to the certainty in the really important points. And by coming to that certainty, this will be we'll really understand the nature of things, and this will be very beneficial for meditation. And so we will leave it here this morning, and now please do a little bit of meditation.
Jo